Hey, it's Cody back here, and today I'm doing a brief presentation on sunlight. I do plan to do a more in-depth presentation in the future about sunlight, but today I just want to talk over some of the basics of sunlight. So sunlight triggers the production of vitamin D in the skin. So this is incredibly important. Vitamin D is one of four fat-soluble vitamins. So you've got vitamin D, A, K, and E. They all work synergistically with each other. They're all phenomenally important within the human body. Without having proper fat-soluble vitamin balance, you will have no hormonal production, you will have terrible immune system, you'll have terrible endocrine function, just everything will go out of whack. So getting vitamin D from sunlight is especially important. It's very, very hard to synthesize vitamin D from food sources as well as from supplement sources. So even when supplementing with vitamin D, it's a synthetic source that's not very bioavailable. So sunlight from vitamin D, or my apologies, vitamin D from sunlight is definitely the number one recommended way to get vitamin D, which is incredibly important for health. So you get vitamin D from UVB rays. For when you're talking UV radiation, there's UVA, UVB, and UVC. So it's specifically UVB that produces the vitamin D in the skin. If you're ever looking to do any tanning beds, I would definitely try to look for a tanning bed that uses UVB specifically, as UVA and UVC are only 1 to 2% of the vitamin D production that UVB has. So UVB is tremendously more efficient in producing vitamin D within the skin. So it also helps convert cholesterol into vitamin D as well, which, just a reminder for people who haven't got on the bandwagon yet, cholesterol is good for you. High cholesterol is associated with centenarians, meaning people who live over 100. High cholesterol is good for you. It is only the firefighters putting out a fire. It is not the fire. There is something bad going on within the body, so cholesterol gets ramped up to deal with this thing within the body. So next up, we've got the sun helps regulate the body's internal clock via the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is a cluster of neurons within the hypothalamus. So exposure to natural light during the day helps maintain a healthy sleep-wake cycle, in part by regulating your melatonin production for later in the day. This is important for quality sleep, which in turn supports overall physical and mental health. Sunlight helps the body recognize day from night, promoting wakefulness during the day and sleepiness at night. So you want to think of sunlight as in two different ways. You want to think of sunlight as a messenger molecule, and you want to think of sunlight as nutrition. So sunlight as a messenger molecule means that sunlight directly affects your circadian biology. If you're able to get sunlight in your eyes throughout the day, as well as especially first thing in the morning, this is an indicative sign to your body, indicating to your body that it indicates your body to produce the proper hormones at the right time of the day. So for example, it suppresses the production of melatonin throughout the day, and that way when it comes later in the evening, when your body's ready to secrete melatonin, it's going to do that more readily, and not only more readily, but at the appropriate time if you've gotten sunlight exposure throughout the day. Getting morning sunlight balances cortisol levels. Throughout the day, starting around 8 a.m., your cortisol levels are incredibly high. And then they go down, and then they go up a little bit when you eat, and they go down, up a little bit when you eat, and they go down until you go to sleep. So you want your cortisol levels to be high first thing in the morning, because that's how you wake yourself up. But when you're regulating your cortisol with sunlight, it's telling your body, okay, we are awake, we have morning sunlight in our eyes, it's time to bring that cortisol way down. You don't want significantly elevated cortisol levels throughout the day. As a stress hormone, cortisol is tremendously beneficial for the human body. It's anti-inflammatory, and it's essential for your body. It's essential for your adrenal glands pump out cortisol anytime there's a stress on the body, and without that cortisol, that stress would take over your body and kill you. So cortisol is very, very important. However, you don't want excess cortisol. So it regulates your circadian rhythm, especially getting sunlight in your eyes. Circadian rhythm is incredibly more important than people realize. Circadian rhythm allows you to have energy throughout the day, it balances out all your hormones, it allows you to have a better and more restful sleep. So not just a longer sleep, not just a better timed sleep, but a higher quality sleep in both non-REM sleep and REM sleep as well. So please don't fear sunlight, guys. Sunlight is so important for you. The only thing you need to fear is getting really bad sunburns. And you can build up a tolerance to the sun. It's just like anything. It's like lifting weights. You don't just start with the heaviest weight you find, you build up to it. With the sun, say if you're starting from scratch, you haven't seen sun in months, you start small. You start with about 10 to 20 minutes. You don't want to do midday exposure because that's when the UV is higher, the UV index. So you want to start early in the morning when the sun is out, or later in the evening towards sunset. And these are going to be the more appropriate times to get your sunlight. And then over time, as you expose yourself to sunlight, you're going to see significant increases in the amount of sun exposure that you can allow yourself to have. So for example, this summer, I started off, I would burn within probably 30 minutes of being in midday sun exposure. So I'm talking like peak levels of sun, 30 minutes. Towards the end of the summer, I could stay outside for 2-3 hours, peak UV index, so meant to burn you, and I'd be completely fine. You just build up a tolerance, you don't wear sunscreen, your body needs the sun. It's had the sun for thousands of years. Why suddenly does sunshine give us cancer? On to my next topic, sunscreens. This is part of the reason why the sun gives us cancer. So we're getting the sunlight. It's incredibly beneficial for our skin. It's providing us with nourishment and light spectrums that are just amazing for the human body. Red light, infrared light, blue light, all across the spectrum, it has these incredibly beneficial light spectrums. However, we are now lathering our skin with carcinogens. What happens if you're going to put a carcinogen on your skin and then cook it into yourself? You're going to have issues. You're going to run into skin cancer, breast cancer, all types of cancer depending on where you're putting the sunscreen and getting the most amount of sun. This is highly not recommended. I understand why people use sunscreen. I understand wanting to prevent burns. This makes complete sense. You don't want to burn. You don't want your children to burn. You don't want to have these issues. But sunscreen is, the truth of it is it's convenient, so we do it. We don't do other things like utilizing shade and sun hats and preparing and planning your day accordingly because it is not convenient. However, you will pay for this convenience, and I don't mean this as a doom and gloom type message, but if you're using sunscreen consistently all the time, you are going to run into issues with your health. If it is only sometimes, if it's in moderation, like everything else, we're human. You're going to do what you're going to do, right? But I just want to talk about some of the ingredients in sunscreen here. So one of which is oxybenzone. This is a common chemical filter found in many sunscreens. Some studies have raised concerns about oxybenzone being absorbed into the skin and potentially acting as an endocrine disruptor. Next up, we've got retinol palmitate. So this is a form of vitamin A that is sometimes used in sunscreens. Some studies in animals have raised concerns that retinol palmitate might increase the risk of skin tumors when exposed to sunlight. Quick caveat, if you'd like vitamin A, you should probably just eat it in animal foods and animal fats, such as butter, tallow, and animal fat. Highly recommend it this way, especially grass-fed, pasture-raised, regeneratively raised meat. You're going to get significantly higher levels of vitamin A as well as beta carotene, which is it converts itself into vitamin A. So I would highly recommend getting vitamin A from your diet. And if you're eating high quality animal foods, this is no problem for you at all. And then lastly here on our ingredient list, we've got avobenzone and homosalate. These ingredients are used to protect the skin from UVA rays, but there are concerns about their stability when exposed to sunlight, which could lead to the creation of harmful free radicals. So these are unstable molecules that we are putting into sunscreen to preserve the sunscreen or to provide a proper texture or to provide protection from the sun. But what are we protecting ourselves from? We are only causing further damage. And as mentioned with avobenzone and homosalate, it talks about the sunlight could lead to the creation of harmful free radicals, the chemical that we're talking about, avobenzone and homosalate, can become unstable due to sunlight. This reminds me of another situation of why people really struggle with sunlight is seed oils. We have been taught for about 50, 60 years that eating seed oils is heart healthy, it is good for you, it's low in saturated fat, this is going to save your life and your ancestor, or in your line to come. Seed oils are not only not good for you, they're terrible for you. They're oxidized. If you think of a fat, this fat is rancid. Think of dead fish walking by a creek. This fat is long gone. You've left it out of the fridge for days and it is now disgusting. This is what seed oils are. They're deodorized in their processing. They're bleached. They put hexane gas on them. It is disgusting. And so we're putting these oxidized, so think of rust. That's oxidization is rust. So oxidize is bad. We've oxidized, rancid, unstable fat or fatty acids going into our body. What do you think is going to happen when we're putting this bad fuel into our body? Because our body uses fat for fuel. And then we're storing it within our fat stores. And now we're exposing the sunlight into our body, into our fat stores. And those light spectrums that I was talking about are interacting with these seed oils that are accumulated within our tissues, with these rancid oxidized oils. And because of high heat and high UV levels, we are now oxidizing the oils further. We are creating unhealthy fatty tissue within our body. And there are legitimate studies to show that the more seed oils that you eat, the more likely you are to burn, the more, quote, fair-skinned you would be. I would be considered very fair-skinned. The video doesn't show it that well, but I'm very, very pale white, especially because it's winter right now in Canada. But I can get lots of sun. Lots of sun. I don't touch seed oils. That is the number one reason. If we want to talk about risks of lack of sun, a 2020 research study suggests that insufficient sun exposure is a significant public health problem and cited previous research linking it to an estimated 340,000 deaths in the United States and 480,000 deaths in Europe per year. So in the United States and Europe, this is just under 1 million deaths per year. And that's just deaths. We're not talking chronic disease. We're not talking about quality of life. We're not talking about people just wanting to feel good and have energy. We're talking directly, not indirectly, directly associated with death. Further, a lack of exposure to sunlight may increase the prevalence of various conditions, including breast and colorectal cancers, cardiovascular disease, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, autism, asthma. So please explain to me how the sun causes cancer, but then the lack of sun causes breast and colorectal cancers. I would like to propose to people to really start to think about these things and understand that it is not the sun that causes cancer. It is your sun lifestyle. It is, what are you doing in the sun? Most people are lathering on sunscreen, eating a crap ton of seed oils, processed foods, unhealthy fuel, putting it in their body for these light spectrums to then interact with this inside of our body. We are often having excess amounts of alcohol the only time that we are in the sun, which is also not good, and it does not allow for you to get any of the benefits from the sunlight that you're getting. And it's been shown that chronic disease goes up tremendously the further north in climate that you go, especially things like autoimmune diseases, especially things like multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis goes up exponentially as you go into more northern climates. It's almost non-existent towards the equator compared to, like, say, up in Canada. The sun is good for you. Please don't let fake propagandized news scare you away from the sun. It's good for you. It's good for your children. It's good for your family. It's good for your pets. It is essential for life. If you don't have the sun, nothing on this world will survive, except maybe bottom dwellers in the bottom of the ocean, but that is not relevant. And then I do want to let you guys know what I do recommend for sunscreen. If you are absolutely adamant on wearing sunscreen, or you know that you just burn really bad, or you have a plan to detox from seed oils, get healthier fats in your body, and in the meantime you want to my apologies, you want to protect your skin, I would recommend zinc oxide based sunscreens. Beef tallow, believe it or not, is an amazing sunscreen, or coconut oil, or titanium dioxide based sunscreens. So in 2021, the Food and Drug Administration, which oversees sunscreen safety, proposed its latest update to regulations for these products. The agency reviewed 16 ingredients and reported that only 2, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, are generally recognized as safe and effective. So this is labeled as GRASE, GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe and effective, which is based on available information. So we only have 2 ingredients used in sunscreens that are recognized as safe. Go read your sunscreen bottle, look at how many ingredients are on that bottle, and then just remember that they're not safe. They are not considered safe by the FDA, and they are still regulated to be in our products that we slather on our children that cause cancer. They are carcinogenic. I am only passionate about this. I'm sorry that I'm attacking sunscreen because it seems frivolous, guys, but I don't want you to get cancer. I don't want your children to get cancer. I don't want you guys to feel like crap. I want you to feel good. So I know it's something as simple as sunscreen, but it makes a massive difference at the end of the day. So please don't fear sunshine. Sunshine is amazing for you. It's antiviral, it's antibacterial, it's energizing, it's grounding. It is one of the most important things for your body. So don't be scared. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.